Now, the federal government has today announced more funding to make national parks and beaches wheelchair accessible. And we're joined now by the Managing Director at Push Mobility, Shane Hihorkek. I hope I've said that correctly, Shane. Apologies if I haven't. Thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks and good morning.
Yeah, what's the federal government saying here about accessibility at our beaches? It needs to improve?
Yeah, so there's a lot of beaches around Australia. There's 10,000, but only 140 are accessible. So the $17 million is huge into taking the steps, removing the steps in making our beaches accessible and inclusive for everyone.
So, okay, can you just take us through what needs to be done to make a beach accessible? Like, what do you practically need on a beach?
Right now, if a person with disability goes to a beach that's not accessible, they're restricted to the footpath. So they just sit there and watch everyone else have a good time. So to make a beach accessible, you need a ramp down to the sand, but also a ramp on the sand called a beach mat. And that allows a wheelchair user to be able to traverse in their own chair down to the water's edge and hang out with their family and friends. But there's also things like beach wheelchairs. And they, if a wheelchair user transfers into them, they can go into the water and get their toes wet and have a really, really great time.
Yeah. Seeing some of the pictures there of some of that beach matting. Now, there's a lot of beaches around the country. So I'm presuming this is going to be targeted at some of the most popular ones?
I believe any beach that once become accessible can now become accessible. In some areas, there might be 2 or 3 beaches within one area. But there are over 360 patrolled beaches in Australia, so it'd be great to see all those beaches become accessible. And councils for a long time have said, we don't have the funding to do that. So this takes away the excuse. So now if councils really do care about inclusion, they will utilise this funding and make the change.
We know the benefits of the beach. You always feel good after getting in the water. It's so good for our physical, mental health, isn't it? Are you a beach goer, Shane?
I am. I used to be a surf lifesaver growing up, so I used to spend a lot of time on the beach, and after I broke my neck, I just assumed that beaches are no longer places for people with disabilities. But it turns out people with disabilities can be included in the beach. And you're right, the well-being and mental health aspect and the social inclusion aspect of everyone, including our ageing population, to be able to go to the beach is huge.
Do people think about this enough? I know you try and raise awareness of it, but do you find that this, people are even considering this as something that needs to be considered if you have disability? Awareness
is definitely changing, but a lot of people, you're right, are not aware of what beach inclusion looks like. But able-bodied people, when they get to go to an accessible beach and they see it, they're like, that makes complete sense. And it's not hard to make a beach accessible. Bit of beach matting, beach wheelchair, a bathroom, and bam, you've got pretty much an accessible beach. So it's really easy to do. And now having the funding to do it means that, why wouldn't you? Terrific.
Are there more of our wild spaces around Australia that you feel could be more accessible going forward? What's like the next frontier, do you think?
Yeah, my big passion obviously is beaches, but to see, all of the patrolled beaches I think is really, really important. But also our parks, being able to use our national parks, use trails, and changing places, bathrooms. And that's one of the key things in the funding that's just been announced, is funding for changing places, bathrooms, but also a portable one. So it means that while you're waiting 5 years for the new infrastructure to get built, you can rent one with the funding that's available, which is amazing.
Really positive news to see more accessible beaches around the country. We've got the best beaches in the world, so they may as well be used by as many people as possible.
Yeah, and maybe you can get your Speedos on and come for a swim with me.
With no cameras maybe. Nate will get down there. He loves getting his Speedos on with the cameras rolling. So we'll join you soon. Thanks so much, Shane. Have a great day.
Thank you. I must admit, I always use the beach matting to get down to the water.